So Microsoft just told everybody that 200 million new people showed up to their games in the last year, and emphasis on new. That is 200 million new players, and guess what? Their revenue went down by $1.7 billion. So player count increased while revenue fell off a cliff. That means Xbox doesn't have a player problem, it has a business model problem. And look, a bad quarter is a bad quarter, every company has one, but this isn't that. Xbox's own annual filing says revenue is down 7% for the year, and the one part of Xbox that everyone figured was the safest, which is content and services, that fell 5%. We haven't seen a decline in that area since 2023. If we're being honest though, the yearly number kind of lets them off easy, because if you split up the year quarter by quarter, we see content and services go up by 1 point in the first quarter, then down 5 points, followed by another 5 points, followed by another 10 points. So content and services revenue didn't just fall, it was falling faster and faster as the year went on, which brings us to the thing that I couldn't stop thinking about. If 200 million people showed up, where did they all go? You see, Microsoft has never actually explained how they count that number, players or people or users accessing their services, and once you start digging a little deeper, it gets strange pretty fast. There's also a reported internal figure floating around about their handheld that lines up with all of this a little too neatly, and we'll get to that one in just a minute. And after all of this came out, we saw the new Xbox CEO Asha Sharma saying that she's going to turn all of this around by June 30th 2027. That is the end of fiscal year 2027. That is the date. She put that date on record now, so mark your calendar. But the real question isn't whether people showed up. They obviously did. It's whether Xbox can prove that showing up was worth anything, and most importantly, how can Xbox get players to stick around? Let's jump right in here, folks. This was reported over on Kotaku. Xbox revenue dropped 1.7 billion last year. Microsoft's gaming division had a very bad quarter. Microsoft reported a huge jump in profits last quarter, but not in its gaming division. Xbox trailed the tech giants' other divisions with a double-digit decline in revenue year over year. The numbers come in the midst of a strategy reset and ongoing mass layoffs. Now, I want to be very clear right at the beginning here. I don't think this is Asha's fault, okay? She hasn't been CEO for very long, and this is the annual report for Microsoft, right? So she hasn't been there a full year, so all of this was sort of set in motion before she even got there, but it is her problem to solve, and so we will talk about her later in the video. But the article goes on to say its fourth quarter earnings report showed a 10% drop in content and services year over year, followed by a 13% drop in Xbox hardware. By contrast, Xbox content and services reported 13% quarterly growth year over year at this time in 2025, so last year. The other thing that's really sad is a 13% drop in Xbox hardware is actually the good news. That's actually a better number than many quarters we've seen in the past. So you know things are not looking good when you see a 13% drop and you're like, oh hey, actually that's actually not too bad. Now the reason that it's not too bad is because Xbox announced that August 1st there's going to be a price increase on the Xbox, which is, let me check the calendar, that is tomorrow. Might be today when you're watching this video. So of course there was panic buying ahead of the increase in Xbox price. People are probably looking to grab a console before GTA comes out, and maybe they're mad at Sony so they grab an Xbox or whatever the case might be. So only being down 13% is a result of panic buying, and that's just pretty much it. And again, minus 13%, that's good for Xbox. That's a good thing as far as they're concerned. The article goes on to say things look even worse across the entire year. Quote, Xbox revenue decreased by $1.7 billion or 7%, driven by declines in Xbox content and services and Xbox hardware. Microsoft reported for the entire fiscal year, Xbox content and services revenue decreased 5% on a prior year comparable that benefited from strong first-party content performance, offset in part by growth in Xbox Game Pass. Xbox hardware revenue decreased 29%, driven by lower volume of consoles sold. Okay, so that is yearly, right? And so that's what I mean by when they look at the last quarter and they're like, oh, it's actually only down 13% this quarter. Not too bad compared to the 29% annually, right? But that's the thing about percent declines, right? Is that it's relative to last quarter or last year or whatever the case might be. So it's like in the case case of Xbox, we've actually seen consistent hardware declines quarter after quarter, year after year. So it's like it keeps falling by double-digit percentages over and over and over again, and there's no relief there. There's no quarter where it's like, oh yes, this really good game came out and everyone came and bought an Xbox and it went up for a quarter. It's like, no, it's just not happening ever at any point in any quarter. Now the counter argument there is like, okay, the Xbox, the latest generation came out in 2020, so it's old hardware, and of course sales decline as time goes on. But like, I feel like this generation of Xbox never really hit its stride, right? Like there never really was that big bump, that massive adoption, because apparently since 2020 everything's an Xbox, and that I'm glad that that's been thrown in the garbage, but clearly that has only done bad things to Xbox sales. Now speaking of Xbox sales, we have to talk about Project Helix later in the video too, because that is highly relevant to console sales, obviously, and I'm just so confused as to what they're gonna do with that. So we'll talk about that in a minute, but the article goes on to say those numbers have precipitated brutal cuts across Xbox, including roughly 1,600 layoffs still to come over the following 12 months. New Xbox CEO Ashish Sharma has signaled a shift in how the console maker will invest going forward, cutting off small studios that worked on more niche games and focusing on major franchises like The Elder Scrolls and Fallout instead. As we saw, Todd Howard came out and literally was like, hey, we're just going to announce everything ever all at once, because basically he's got the barrel pressed right up against his spine and he's like, okay, fine, I'll talk about what we're working on, right? That's the only way that you could read that message that came out a few weeks ago. But anyway, they go on to say, but the poor financial performance also comes after a particularly bad year for Call of Duty Black Ops 6. That's because Call of Duty hasn't been good in about a decade, actually, now that I look at it. But anyway, Microsoft paid over $70 billion to acquire Activision Blizzard in 2023, a multi-business unit publishing operation that dwarfs Xbox's first-party studios. And this is kind of a counterpoint to what I said earlier about content and services falling 5%. It's like, okay, they got Activision Blizzard in 2023, so you saw a massive spike in people playing Xbox games, right? Buying Xbox content, because that's technically Xbox content, right? But Call of Duty is Xbox content. So you saw a big spike in 2023, and then 2024, I think it was, they added Call of Duty to Game Pass or something, or maybe that was 2025. But either way, like there were some like accounting tricks that occurred over the last couple of years that artificially inflated content and service revenue. And so now that they've run out of tricks up their sleeve, it's like, okay, yeah, now we're back to the raw numbers, and it turns out it's falling. The article goes on to say Xbox is also suffering from repeated price hikes on its consoles due to an AI hyperscaler race that Microsoft is investing tens of billions of dollars into. I made an entire video about this, talking about how Microsoft is the reason that Microsoft has to spend so much money on their own consoles. They are the ones pumping up this AI race, or at least they're a big part of it, and they are paying their own price, which is like insane. Okay, what a time to be alive. The standard Xbox Series X is now $750, a 33% jump from what it cost at launch back in 2020. The company is currently working on bringing its next-gen Project Helix hardware to market, with Microsoft reportedly still losing money on each new Xbox sold, even at the new higher prices. It's hard to see how it can start winning back console share in the current landscape, or if it even wants to. We'll talk about Project Helix in just a second, but this was posted over on Polygon. Xbox chief wants to invest in what players value after significant 2026 revenue drop. Xbox's latest financial report makes it clear that the company needs to shift its focus. Wow, you don't say. Nothing gets past you, Xbox. All right, let's see what they have to say here. If anyone needed more confirmation that Xbox is not in a good place right now, we didn't. Okay, I reported on Xbox's collapse back in October of 2023, and it seems like every month I was just proven more and more right with that. But anyway, the financial report for the fiscal quarter makes it brutally clear. Although Microsoft's overall revenue has increased, remember, Microsoft is a massive company. Okay, so the Xbox division is like tiny for them. It's almost irrelevant. The company's latest fiscal report reveals a significant decrease in Xbox service and content sales for the fourth quarter. Okay, now we just covered all that, but here's what's new. In a previous statement, Ashish Sharma, Xbox CEO, said that the business is currently not healthy, and while a lot of effort has been put into improving Game Pass, multi-platform gaming, and the number of games available on Microsoft platforms, the business did not grow at an expected pace. With the release of the financial report, Sharma spoke out and said Xbox intends to focus on what players value in order to grow the business alongside its audience. And this is what she posted over on X, formerly Twitter. In fiscal year 2026, over 200 million new players came to Xbox and our games, but our business did not grow with our audience. We need to close that gap by investing in what players value. That will take time, time, but we expect to return to growth by the end of fiscal year 27. I think for her own job security, that's probably a good timeline there, Asha. I think I mean, I honestly, there were holes in the bottom of the Xbox bucket when Asha arrived, so it's hard to fill it back up when you're just bleeding it out. And that is really what she was hired to do, right? She was handed a half-dead corpse and basically was like, hey, hopefully you can turn this thing around and figure it out. And she's looking at this half-dead corpse saying, hey, why did you hand me Mitch McConnell? Okay, I should make political jokes, but anyway, that dude's definitely dead. Anyway, the intention is to keep growing and report better numbers next year. Wow, that's what business savvy individuals they are. Yeah, we're gonna make the numbers bigger and better, you know, and basically the next year's goal is to have bigger numbers, and then after that we're gonna try to get bigger numbers. Like, okay, great. I don't know what you were doing before, but like, I mean, that's a good intention. Okay, I don't think we've ever seen a company that has an intention of shrinking. Like, yeah, we're gonna actually shrink the business next year. We're not looking, we don't want so many good numbers next year. Anyway, Sharma did not reveal any details on how she intends to grow the company, but fans were not afraid to let her know what they wanted to see. If there's one topic that gaming fans are particularly sensitive about right now, it's game ownership. Recently, Sony revealed it would be moving away from physical discs and taking a digital only approach to the business. Sony for that, by the way. It's still Sony. It's still Sony. I haven't turned on my PlayStation 5 since that announcement, and I really wanted to play the new Black Ops and Black Ops 2 ports, but I held out, boys. For those of you that don't know, because, and I know you don't know this about me, but my YouTube channel, my YouTube career, when I really started taking this seriously, it was to be a Call of Duty channel back in 2016. And unfortunately for me, that was the last time Call of Duty was good. It was only bad since then, and so my Call of Duty YouTuber ambitions just never really worked out. But basically, I love Call of Duty. It's an amazing franchise, or at least it was an amazing franchise. And so if there's any games I would have loved to return to, it was Black Ops 1 and 2. But guess what? It was released digital only at a time where it's PlayStation. Okay, so I took a step back, money where my mouth is. I did not buy it or play it because they can go kick rocks. Anyway, the article says gamers were not happy with this announcement and many are considering abandoning the company for it. So when Sharma mentioned that Xbox wanted to invest in what players value, the comment section was overtaken by players saying how much they valued exclusives and the right to own physical media. And really, I don't see a path forward other than that if what they actually care about is Xbox the hardware, right? If they care about Xbox the hardware, there's really no other future other than exclusives, right? I mean, if you're gonna push for an all digital future, which I mean, look, it, as much as I hate to say it, it looks like that's the case. Okay, I wish it weren't. I've got an entire shelf of games here, okay, and lots of these are PS5 games that I bought back in the day. But if you're gonna have an all digital future where you own nothing, then there is no reason to buy an Xbox. There's just not, right? You're gonna go to Steam or GOG. These are just significantly better platforms than what Sony or Microsoft are offering with the PlayStation or Xbox. So unless there was something there that you could only play there, then it's GG. It's over. There's no reason to buy their hardware, right? I mean, like, let's just take a step back and think, like, which company right now at the current point is dominating the gaming industry in 2026? The answer is Nintendo, right? For all of their scummy business practices and the fact that they're basically just a law firm that happens to manufacture games. When you look at the overall gaming industry, the Switch and Switch 2 are really healthy right now. And the reason for that, despite all the bullshit, is because of intellectual property. It's stuff you can only play on Switch. So whether there's a new Fortnite update, it doesn't matter. You can play that anywhere. You're gonna buy a Switch because that's the only place to play Pokemon legally. It's the only place to play Mario, Donkey Kong, Smash Bros, Mario Kart, whatever the case is. That's why people buy consoles in 2026. Otherwise, if you don't have that value proposition, then people are just gonna go to Steam, because there's just, like, the last thing that gaming had from a console perspective is ease of use, right? I mean, you just pop a game disc in and go, and I know, like, there's downloads, day one patches and hot fixes, whatever the case is, but like, you don't have to worry about driver updates or upgrading the NVIDIA GeForce experience or Windows update or whatever the case is. is, okay? You don't have to think about overclocking and all this other stuff and what's running in the background because I'm lagging, right? Like, you don't have to think about any of that with a console. It's just you play the game once it's ready and that's it, right? That was the primary draw. The secondary draw is physical media, right? If I'm gonna play Elden Ring, and I'm a console player since I was a kid, so I like console. I prefer controllers over a keyboard, even though I've played tons of PC games, right? World of Warcraft. Lately, I've played some Power World. Actually played a lot of Power World. My girlfriend and I have been grinding that game for like what feels like 10 days at this point. That's part of the reason why I haven't had many videos on this channel. I mean, frankly, there hasn't been much news that I'm interested in besides this Xbox stuff, but also I've been playing a ton of Power World, boys. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. If I were to buy a third-party game, let's say Elden Ring, okay, or let's say, you know, I wanted to buy a Call of Duty, I would buy it on PlayStation because I could get the disc. That was it. I have the discs of all of my PlayStation games with the exception of Hogwarts Legacy, because back then if you pre-ordered it on digital, I think you got it like 3 days early or something. I don't remember why. I think that's the only reason I would have ever bought a digital, but I regret that. One of the few digital purchases I did make a couple of years ago. But anyway, my point is, a third-party game, I personally, I'm just talking about me, I would buy the physical media for PlayStation because there is no physical media for PC, right? I can't go out and buy a physical copy of Call of Duty or Elden Ring for my personal computer, okay? So in a world where the only sort of advantages that Xbox and Sony had were exclusives and physical media, and now they've basically committed to getting rid of physical media, and they've also started putting exclusives other places. Like this week you could play Halo on your PS5, okay? So it's like, all right, well, they've gotten rid of that too. It's like now there's actually no reason to have an Xbox objectively, right? Unless they bring those things back, there's no reason to buy anything on Xbox. There's no reason to own an Xbox. And even further than that, we have the Steam machine, okay? Now the Steam machine has its own problems. The price point is ridiculous, and it's just such a niche thing at that price point that it's really not going to break into the market at all in any serious capacity. But 5 years from now, if they update the Steam machine with new hardware and the, you know, RAM AI crisis is over, right? And maybe prices are more reasonable then okay, well, now you've got Steam in your living room. Now you really don't need a console. If physical media is gone in 2030 and the Steam machine is a reasonable price, that will be the de facto best place to play any game in your living room, because all else equal with all digital marketplaces, of course the Steam machine is going to be better, right? If there's no exclusives, of course that's the answer. So all that to say, Asha Sharma is correct in that they need to invest in what players value. It's just a matter of, are they able to correctly identify what players valued in the first place when it came to the original Xbox and the Xbox 360. I think the 360 was the peak of Xbox. I think the numbers prove that, right? I mean, it felt that way, and also it was real. Okay, it's not like it was just nostalgia. Like that was actually the best. Oh bro, I'm just getting emotional thinking about it. Fable 2, boys, oh my god, are you kidding me? This thing is like, the art is sun faded from all of the afternoons leaving it out. Absolutely incredible game. We got Gears of War 2 limited edition because I have been a ball knower since day one. Oh my god, look at that steelbook. Look what they took from us. Look what they took from us. It even had an art book and the actual photograph that you got in the game of, I think it was, is that Dom and Maria? I haven't played this game in so freaking long, I forgot, but whoo, man, a little wave of nostalgia there. That is, what a trip, man. I miss, oh, and the click feeling of the original Xbox 360, not the haptic touch one, but like the red ring one. You click the power button, oh, and then you boot it up and you get the red ring. Anyway, the article goes on to say, there are rumors that Project Helix, Xbox's next console, won't have a disk drive, meaning that Xbox could be terminating physical disc production soon too. However, this has not been confirmed. At this time, all we know is that Xbox is working on a way to digitize physical media. The goal is to make it possible for players to play the games that they physically own by inserting them into their console and linking them to their account. If they were to ever sell their physical disc, the license would be transferred to another account once the disc was inserted into a different console. This way, players would benefit from the practicality of digital games while keeping their physical media and the option to sell, borrow, or give away the disc in the future. I will go on record and say, if Xbox, listen up, Asha, if you're watching, if you have a disc drive in your future console, Project Helix, and you commit to supporting actual physical media, not just a license on a disc that downloads from a server, okay, actual game on disc, and the disc drive is built into the console, I will make the switch on day one. I've got a PlayStation 5, I've got a PlayStation 4, I've got a PlayStation 3 and 2. I also still have my Xbox 360 from back in the day, but my point is I don't have an Xbox One, I don't have an Xbox Series X. I will make the jump from PlayStation to Xbox in a heartbeat immediately. Ooh, day motherfucking one, I will make that jump. That is my commitment. I will pre-order this thing. That's how much physical media means to me. Now, am I the average gamer? I don't know. I think maybe I lean a little bit more towards the hardcore gamer. I think the average gamer is playing NBA, whatever they're up to at this point, or they're playing the latest Call of Duty, okay, or they just boot up Fortnite every once in a while, or Minecraft. So maybe those people don't care about physical media, and that is the majority of the market, right? So if the gaming market is in decline, they are the people that are, it's their fault, okay, just so we're clear. Like if we want to point fingers at anybody, it's the people that consume the media but don't actually care about the media, okay? They're just in it for the quick, you know, I just got home from work, I want to play NBA 2K for a little bit and then that's it, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying that the people that don't actually care about the media and its preservation and collecting and all that other stuff, like they are the consumers that these big companies want to attract the most, and they simultaneously are the consumers that have the complete opposite values as probably you and I when it comes to game ownership, physical media ownership, and things like that, okay? Anyway, even still, let me make one thing clear, okay? It's the responsibility of the gamers to put their money where their mouth is, right? So if you like physical media, you should be buying physical media, but it's also the responsibility of the platforms to support what gamers actually want. So I don't want to sit here and say like, oh, you should be pointing your finger at the ball and gun gamers, okay? That's not really what I meant, even though I am frustrated with them. But either way, while we're talking about Project Helix, I saw this article over on Windows Central, which really kind of hit home here. They say Xbox Helix and Steam and why it no longer makes sense. One of the coolest new features of the next gen Xbox is the promise of PC-like openness, but does it still make sense from a strategic point of view? Does it still fit Xbox's wider plan under Asha? Let's discuss. The article says, one thing I've been thinking about a fair bit recently is Microsoft's original pitch for Project Helix. Former CEO Phil Spencer was teasing for years before Project Helix was revealed that it would run PC games. He talked about platforms like the Epic Games Store on Project Helix, for example, opening up the platform to new business models and aligning more closely with traditional PC gaming, albeit designed for the living room. In 2026, we're in a very different universe though. The memory crisis has made consumer tech less affordable than ever. The console market has been the affordable, simple alternative to PC gaming. Several price increases later, it increasingly looks less like the affordable option and more like the nerfed version of PC gaming. I couldn't have said it better myself, bro. As an open PC, Xbox Helix could end up being absurdly expensive. As an open device, Xbox Helix would likely be far too expensive to justify purchase for the vast majority of traditional console gamers and parents raising the next generation of potential console gamers as well. Users are already stretched on affordability and gravitating towards cheaper experiences. Free-to-play titles are eating into legacy core gaming paradigms, and parents are putting their kids on Roblox and old iPads instead of considering increasingly expensive consoles. Roblox is bigger than Steam and PlayStation combined right now. Ooh, we're just gonna sit on that for a second. Roblox is bigger than Steam and PlayStation combined right now. Oh my god, that's insane. Driven in large part by Gen Alpha and younger Gen Z audiences. By making Xbox Helix an open device, that traditional software sales subsidy goes out the window. Microsoft would have to price Xbox Helix as a high-end PC, profiting on the hardware rather than the software if it couldn't guarantee users would remain in its ecosystem. This is one reason why the Steam machine ended up being so expensive. If you can install Windows on it and ignore Steam, why would Valve sell the hardware at a loss? It simply isn't viable. That is true, 100% true. So if Xbox Helix is to come in at a reasonable console-like price point, doesn't that mean it has to be a closed box, subsidized by software sales rather than hardware profitability? These are the questions Xbox CEO Asha Sharma and Xbox CSO Matthew Ball are likely grappling with right now. And so the question is, like, Xbox Helix as it was announced looks like it's just Microsoft's version of the Steam machine, and we already see how the Steam machine is doing. It's not doing well, in part because the price is too high, but also because they just can't make enough of them, right? I mean, there really is a shortage of RAM. So like, even if they wanted to make more, I don't think they could, okay? But the point is, why would they as an Xbox, why would they look at the Steam machine and how it's performing right now and say, yes, that's what we want to replicate. It's like, no, first of all, no, okay, that is not what they want. And second of all, you're not going to compete with them anyway, right? Like if okay, so the Xbox can run Steam, great news. So can the Steam machine. You might as well get a Steam machine, right? Like, what are we talking about? If you want an open platform, they've already been beat to the punch by Steam. It already exists, okay? And there would be no reason to buy a brand new Xbox unless there was like, okay, it's an open platform and it's got Xbox exclusives, right? So yes, you can run Steam on it, you can run the Epic Game Store, but it also can run the Xbox Marketplace, and that's the only place you can buy the next, you know, Gears of War, the next Halo, the next whatever, okay? If that's the case, then okay, now you've got yourself a value proposition again. But really, for everything else, for all the third-party games, then you're just going to use the Epic Game Store because they give you a free game whenever, or you're just going to use Steam or GOG or whatever the case might be. And so they still lose on that front. And with the release cadence of exclusive games, there haven't really been any, but let's assume in the future that's what they're going to plan on doing for Xbox. I mean, that's, as this article says, Xbox is pulling its Xbox games off PlayStation in the future. So, okay, maybe we can assume that's what they're doing. But even still, if we look at the current generation of Xbox, we have to ask ourselves, like, well, how many exclusives even are there, right? It's a pretty small number. And so what is supposed to carry these platforms in between there are third-party games, right? Games like Fortnite that people keep coming back to. And if you have an open platform, then you really lose all the profit there. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. If Xbox wanted to do the most based thing possible, if they really just wanted to plant their flag in the sand and say, we're not leaving, we're not going anywhere, here's all they have to do, right? Well, okay, who owns Call of Duty? Yeah, they could just be like, great news, Call of Duty's an Xbox exclusive, right? And now you could say, well, they're going to lose all the sales for PlayStation and PC and all that. Yep. Yeah. If they want to guarantee that they will sell consoles, that's one way to do it, right? Now they'd have to actually be making a profit on the consoles for that to be worth it. Otherwise, they're just losing money, right? Or they could just do what they used to do. I don't know if you guys remember this, but back in the day, Call of Duty used to be a timed exclusive when it came to things like DLC, beta weekends, things like that. They could easily just bring that back, right? They could say, okay, Call of Duty is an Xbox exclusive for the first 14 days. And then that's it. And then you just sell a bunch of Xbox. You just print Xbox money. That's it. And the reason I know that is because back in 2000 and oh my God, when was this? This was so freaking long ago. This was probably like 2014. I actually ended up trading my Xbox One. Okay, I owned an Xbox One and I traded it with a guy on Craigslist for his PS4. Okay, and the reason that I made that one-to-one swap is because I wanted the PS4 for the timed exclusive of Call of Duty. That's how big of a fan I was back then. Okay, it's embarrassing to admit these days, but that's how badly I wanted to play all the Call of Duty content on day one. DLC, whatever it was, I wanted it before everybody else, and the only place to do that was on PlayStation. They signed an exclusive deal with them. Now, who owns Call of Duty? Xbox. So flex that muscle, okay? It doesn't have to be a permanent exclusive. It could just be a timed exclusive. It's just, yes, you can play Call of Duty on PlayStation, fine, but the best way to play will be on Xbox because it'll get the, you know, the new season of Warzone a week early, and it'll get the new DLC, the new skins, all that stuff. That comes a week early or 2 weeks early. The beta for the new Call of Duties comes out a week or two early, right? Like all of that stuff, if it's just timed, then that's it. You still make sales on PlayStation, right? You still get that install base on Steam and all that stuff. You still get the install base on the Blizzard launcher. Is that how you play? Is that how you play Call of Duty on PC, right? Is it through the Activision Blizzard Battle.net launcher? Is that what people do? Anyway, however people play Call of Duty on PC, I don't even think that's a thing, right? I don't know anyone who plays Call of Duty on PC, really. But anyway, my point is they could really slam their tool on the table and say, hey, we own this bitch. Okay, and if we're gonna stick around, this is a timed exclusive now. Now, do they have the cojones to do that? Probably not. And would it make business sense? I don't know. That's not my job. They can run the numbers, right? But a timed exclusive, I think, is the best middle ground to where they still make sales on third party and they still get the benefit of people saying, okay, well, I want Call of Duty as soon as possible. I'm buying an Xbox. And you know the Call of Duty fans would do that, right? You know they would do that. When the PS6 and the Project Helix come out and they're on the shelf next to one another and they're both $2,000 because that's what the future is going to look like for us, okay? And you're looking at that and you're trying to make the decision, which one do I get? Well, okay, okay, neither of them have really great exclusives, but Helix gets the Call of Duty a week early. Like, okay, that's an easy choice. You make that choice and you win. But beyond all of that, we already kind of have an Xbox out there that is a little bit more in line with what an open platform looks like, and that is the Xbox ROG Ally. Okay, we've talked about this on the channel before, but the article on Windows Central says the Xbox Ally costs $1,000 because Asus, who makes the hardware, cannot make their money back on the software sales, given that they have no real distribution platform of their own. Thanks to the Rampocalypse, those wafer thin margins get even trickier. I've been told Xbox is losing around $150 per Xbox Series X or S sold recently due to memory price increases, and will continue to lose money per device even after the planned August 2026 price hike. Now imagine 50% or more of those Xbox Series X users bypassed the Xbox ecosystem and went straight to Steam to buy games. The margins would be even worse. Without any form of software sales subsidy, Xbox wouldn't have a business at all. Indeed, and this is the part that I alluded to earlier, internal Xbox documents from around last winter received and verified by Windows Central offer some insights into how Microsoft's Xbox Ally gaming PC is going on that front. Around 75% of Xbox Ally owners also own Xbox Game Pass Ultimate or PC Game Pass, which is an impressive figure, but the purchasing behavior of non-subscription holders offers a bleak picture for the Xbox PC store attach rate and insight into how Xbox Helix could go if it were open. Of non-subscribing users, if an Xbox Ally user was also an Xbox console owner, around a quarter of those users also made purchases on the Xbox PC ecosystem. However, if the Xbox Ally owner was not an Xbox console owner, that figure dropped to a measly 2%, suggesting that almost 100% of non-Xbox owning new Xbox Ally owners simply went straight to Steam. Okay, and this is what I said earlier, and this is how I know I'm right? And like really, there's this type of data is what makes the argument an open and shut case. If you have the Project Helix on the shelf sitting next to a Steam Deck and the average user has no brand loyalty there, okay, because they're just looking to play NBA 2K, they're gonna go with Steam. And it's like, okay, well, why would I have an Xbox if I'm gonna use Steam? I also just get the Steam machine, right? This data literally proves that that's what normal people think. I'm gonna drive this home a little bit, okay, in case it was confusing. If somebody owns an Xbox Ally and they also own an Xbox console, 25% of them made purchases on the Xbox PC ecosystem. But if they own the Xbox Ally and not an Xbox console, only 2% of them made purchases on the Xbox PC ecosystem. Okay, 2%. That is not a business model that Xbox or Microsoft is going to go after. If Xbox Project Helix simply became a de facto Steam box for new users, the profitability would have to come out of the upfront hardware cost. Otherwise, Microsoft stands to potentially lose millions on the new hardware ecosystem in general. With the Rampocalypse and user behavior data from the Xbox Ally experiment, Microsoft might be reconsidering this aspect of the Xbox. Otherwise, it stands to just accelerate another generation of users to free-to-play games, Steam, and mobile slot. But Asha Sharma has professed Xbox Helix will support PC games, and technically that's true. She did say fairly recently that it will play your PC games, although Xbox CSO Matthew Ball did say that aspects of Xbox Helix were being reevaluated. Now, returning to Asha's tweet for just a second, I want to point out the figure that she references here. Over 200 million new players came to Xbox and our games. Now that number is tremendously vague. Okay, we actually have no idea what Asha is referring to here. This was not a data point that was elaborated on anywhere else, but it's likely that what Asha means is that we had over 200 million new people try an Xbox game that was made by an Xbox studio or used an Xbox service. Okay, and that is quite the broad number when you consider that, again, they own Activision Blizzard. Okay, so like everyone who played the new Call of Duty last year, are they a new player to Xbox and our games? That's technically their game, right? They also own Candy Crush. So if somebody gets a new iPhone and they have a new Apple ID and they download Candy Crush, is that a new player coming to an Xbox game? So we don't really know what this number actually means, but let's assume that Asha is being genuinely honest here, and this is some statistic that is impressive or relevant to business operations. If this is to be believed, then Xbox does not appear to have a reach problem. It has a conversion, monetization, and platform identity problem. So Microsoft needs to prove that people playing an Xbox owned game eventually creates meaningful value for Xbox itself. Otherwise, what's the point? And if there's no point, then there's no Xbox. But guys, if you made it to the end of the video, please consider dropping a thumbs up on it. It really does help out the channel a ton. And you might think you're subscribed because you've seen a ton of my videos, but you're actually not. Double check down below. I gotta cut this video short because they are mowing the grass, leaf blowing, and weed whacking all at the same time outside my window. I live in Queens, New York. The lawn is tiny. I cannot believe how often my videos are interrupted by loud noises. And if it's not that, they're hammering the sidewalk for the 15th time, or there's horns honking out there, I'm just gonna start throwing grenades out here, just like that Family Guy episode. I'm just gonna start throwing grenades. I don't know. I'm gonna lose my mind. Anyway.